Hi, I'm Roz Kolb, and I'm a clinical psychologist with Can Do MS, and I'm really happy to be here today with a dear friend and colleague, Matt Sacco, who is a clinical health psychologist from the Cleveland Clinic. And one of the reasons I'm very happy to be talking about this topic with Matt is that I know he's hunkered down at home with his own young children, so he's living this experience that we're going to talk about today. So Matt, can you start by telling me what recommendations you have for parents who are trying to figure out what to say to their kids about COVID-19 and what not to say?
Yeah, it's a great question, Roz, because I think that starting off with this less about exactly what to say and more about taking a global approach of being able to manage your own mental health as a starting point and well-being, because as you said, being hunkered down at home myself with 3 kids under the age of 9, that in and of itself is new for me. I'm not accustomed to doing that. So being able to manage whatever kind of frustrations or anxieties or worries that I have on a day-to-day basis, I think has a much more profound effect on how to address this topic that is loaded with all sorts of worries and angst for all of us anyway. So I think managing that is far more important, and doing so by example, not the old, do as I say, not as I do, but trying to model for my own kids as much of a struggle as that can be, how to behave and how to manage and how to be a little healthier. That's where I'd start. It's just kind of taking care of yourself first.
So I'm glad you said that. And for those of you who are listening, we do have some other brief videos up on the Can Do website that talk about how to manage your emotions and during this time, and also how to deal with the very unusual togetherness that we're all experiencing for long hours of every day. And these are challenging for all families, whether or not they are affected by MS. So I'm glad you said that. But I do want to talk a little bit about the specifics in the sense that children are surrounded by people who are talking about this, and they are hearing things from other kids. They are hearing from other family members, and younger kids are hearing from older kids. So how can a parent help funnel some of that information so that it's age appropriate for the different kids in the household?
A great question. It's difficult because, especially maybe the further apart that your children are in age, it takes a little bit more creativity and kind of being on the ball. And this, again, another issue with this day and age is that kids have access to this information. It used to be, well, just turn off the TV and don't watch the news, and that's nearly impossible. So the best to be aware of what sources that they're getting their information from. That's important. Knowing your own kids. I mean, we live with them. We're around them, so we do have some sense of kind of where they are with in respect to developmentally. What kinds of things that they may ask and do. Starting there, but I like to start more than anything with letting them ask the question, because sometimes the question that we hear or the information that we hear may not be the exact question that they're asking. So let them start with a question, and then with mine, I usually start with something like, especially my daughter said, well, wait a minute, what motivated that question? Where did that come from? And kind of listening so that I don't end up as a parent kind of, I'm not really good about turning off the news or getting the headlines and being influenced by it. So what I want to do is not kind of project that kind of angst and fear on them, and just say, hey, where did that come from? What are you worried about? What, if that's the expression, but let them ask. It's their level.
So one follow-up question to that, and we have this conversation similarly when kids have questions about MS and how to answer them. But sometimes we have to help kids because they don't have the vocabulary to ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
particularly in a situation like this where the vocabulary is all new and unfamiliar. I wonder if having kids draw pictures, as kids are doing, I heard you mention not too long ago that some of the papers on your desk have been turned into drawing paper, which I
Yeah.
love. So sometimes, is it helpful to see what they draw about what's going on to help you identify questions?
Yeah, that's a great point. I've found myself a lot recently. I think, you know, as a psychologist, it can be challenging. I think from the outside perspective, where people think that you're analyzing everything that your kids or your family does, but just as a parent, being curious about what they're drawing and asking, what's that, or that, and to see where that may lead you, because again, it may just be that they're drawing, and but if you notice a change, as a parent, if you're seeing some change in their drawing, nothing, diagnosing or clinically, but just, just in the feeling of the drawing, if they seem to be expressing maybe a little more fear, a little more, anger, trying to use that as a barometer, if you will, for maybe understanding a little bit more about where they are, what they might be worried about, and going from there. But really, really trying not to lead them down a road that my mind might want to go down, and just allowing them an opportunity to do that, because they draw every day in school. That's a medium. Drawing, painting, coloring, whatever it is, that is a medium by which they kind of express themselves to the world. So as adults who are not, and myself, I'm not in the education field, I have to be willing to allow them to use that palette, if you will, that they're accustomed to, and not the one that I'm accustomed to. So yeah, I mean, anything that they give you.
So I'm a grandparent now. I don't have any young kids at home, but I I was trying to compare this in my own experience as a parent to the things we have to reassure our children about as they grow up. And this really stands out to me because we don't, even though we're the parents, we don't have the answers. And I think parents aren't used to that. Parents are used to feeling in charge and control, like they can provide answers, provide reassurance. And what are your thoughts about how parents can best do that today, even though we don't have answers at this point?
Mm-hmm. I think about the only place that you can kind of start there, I think, is using the same template that you would about anything else that we don't have the answers for. This just fits into that category, although it is different in that this is affecting so many people. Being, having some place where you're getting your own information as a parent first. You don't want to, falsely provide some sense of optimism, but having some facts, telling them what you know. I don't think a child, a young child, necessarily needs to hear the statistics and the numbers and this and that. I mean, we can get caught up in that, but being confident in the information that you have, and also telling your kids that you're as a family, or whoever's in the home with you, doing everything that you can. Modeling, like I said before, washing your hands. We all need to wash our hands anyways, but it's even more important now. And having a relationship with, everything's turned virtually. So, assuring them that, if something happens, that you can access your doctor. Anything that you can do to show them that there are steps that you're taking to take care of yourself as a family, and that not every kind of sniffle or not every, cough means that somebody has this flu, which that's hard considering the information that we're subjected to. It's
I really like that, because I think kids of all ages, even the older ones who complain a lot, really get comfort from the family, the sense of family, that we are in this together, we are doing the best we can do, and we as parents are here to keep you safe, even if you don't like what we're telling you to do. Which brings me to the next question. I've heard a lot from parents of older kids, teenagers in particular. We know that teenagers tend to feel invulnerable. They tend to want to go full bore ahead no matter what. And what can parents do to rein in the enthusiasm of older kids for getting out, seeing their friends, being social?
Yeah, I think that the neat part now that we haven't had in the past in many ways is the ability to connect virtually, which is I recognize it's merely a kind of a not adequate substitute for being there in person. We're all experiencing that. Again, I would go back to showing them how to have these relationships virtually, having picking up in FaceTiming or whatever it might be with a grandparent, with an aunt, with an uncle, with a cousin, giving them opportunities. I live in a place where I've been fortunate from the get-go, like probably 3 weeks ago. And my oldest, she's 9, she's in 3rd grade. They had all of their learning online virtually from the beginning. They brought Chromebooks home and they have class meetings. And so the teacher's in the middle of the screen, like the Brady Bunch, and all the kids are around there, and they have that opportunity to have a little bit of normalcy. The challenge is as you go up the ladder in terms of development, especially, and I worry this myself as I see the technology changing, you do have to jump in with both feet and know what your kids are doing to the best that you can. Familiarize yourself with the platforms that they're using, because if you don't, it's going to be very difficult to monitor that. And the one thing that I would say, and this can a great opportunity for older kids and teenagers in particular, is sitting down with them. And this is a two-way street. Sitting down with them, and showing them how to find reputable information online. Sit down side by side. Here's a website that's good. Let's, for instance, and we'll put some of those, I think, at the end of this. Going to the CDC website, going to, by your Cleveland Clinic website, going to the Mayo Clinic, seeing what is there and walking through that. Then you can allow them to teach you a little bit about their technology, and sitting there side by side. Well, how are you communicating with your friends? Where are you getting this information? And it kind of gives them a sense of power and kind of authority, which we know developmentally feels really good as a teenager, to be able to teach mom or dad something, or grandma or grandpa something, because it's taking an interest in their world. And from that standpoint, I said that's kind of like it gives you a chance. It gives you a chance to get some sense of what they're doing, but to expect that you can rein all of it in, I think even as a parent, just feels really overwhelming, because I don't live in that world that they're in, and it's a lot of catch up.
And older kids, I think, have in many respects have just gotten to the point where they are more independent. They go out independently, they do things independently. And I think one of the things that parents probably have to do in this situation is really put their foot down, so to speak, in a way that they may not have had to for a while, to say, I understand you're antsy and frustrated and you want to go out and you want to do things, but you really can't. And it's not just about your health. It's about what you bring back into the house if you go out and mix with other people. And it's what you might be bringing inadvertently to other people when you go out, since we know now that many carriers of this have silent symptoms, that they're not feeling sick, so they don't know.
Right.
And I urge parents to hold on to that role of parent. And really, it's okay for your kids to be mad at you. It's okay for them to have a tantrum. It's okay for them to think being over controlling. You just need to do it. Happy for you that your oldest is only 9.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm getting accustomed to myself working from home in many ways, and I'm fortunate that, like even right now, my wife has been gracious enough to send the kids outside, because if not, like you said, the tantrums and things like that, and we do the best we can with the space that we have, because there would be some interruptions, and that's life. And I would add to something that you had said about putting their foot down because they don't know, and this goes back to I think what I had said at the beginning, and that's great. I know you want to go out, I know you want to do this. That only works if you yourself as a parent are not doing the same thing. If you're telling your kid, you can't, and you're, every waking minute, oh, I got to go do this, I got to go do that, and kind of taking a laissez-faire or nonchalant approach to it, it's really a lot harder to tell your kids, listen, I know it's tough, but you can't do it when flip side, well, you went out and did this, or you went out, like, I get it as a parent, you don't, they shouldn't be, you want to say, well, that's me, but it's going to be a lot easier it's not going to be easy, it's going to be easier when you're showing them, no, I want to go too. I can't even go to work. And that's another thing that comes up, which is you have an elevated level of stress in many households, because either people are learning to work from home or people are out of jobs and trying to figure other things out. So it's never quite as simple as, it may seem on the surface. And I think we have to be willing to, acknowledge that there are, things that are maybe bigger and harder than we've ever dealt with, and being willing ourselves to ask and reach out for help where we can. Never before has telehealth, telemedicine been more available. Use it. That's whether it's for yourself or for kids, whatever it is. Use the technology. It's really being pushed, and don't be afraid to ask for help and advice. That's what I would say, even if it's within your own family.
Thank you very much, Matt. I think this is all good advice, and I hope our listeners have found this helpful. Thanks.
I do too. And again, it's unprecedented times. So, I don't think in many ways, if your heart is in the right place and you're doing the best you can, that you can never really say that you're doing the wrong thing. You're just trying to do the best that you can to, and we all are, to figure this out as we go. And organizations like, Can Do MS can be a really good support. And I would tell people all the time, don't hesitate to ask those questions. Don't hesitate to reach out, because, with MS, you're trying to figure this out yourself as well. The access to the world around you. So kids might have those questions.
So one other final thought based on what you just said. I think all of us have had moments as parents where we felt we might lose it with our kids. Kids can really do that to us when they have a mind to. And I think for any of you parents who start to feel overwhelmed, or like you're really close to an edge, and might find yourself saying things or doing things you wouldn't want the neighbors to see, that's a sign, that's a red flag. It's a sign not that you're a bad parent, not that you're a bad person, but that you too are maxed out by all of the stresses and strains. And please know that it is a sign of strength to reach out for help, as Matt is saying, and you can always call one of the MS navigators at the National MS Society and say, I'm in trouble here, I need some support and I need some help. And they will help you for certain. And you can reach out to your friends, to clergy, to anybody who's been a support, and say, this is getting to be too much. I just need to talk about that, and get some support.
Yeah, that is the biggest thing. It's not, and even in what I've seen in my own clinical practice, people like the virtual visits. People like connecting virtually in many ways. So I think that the avenues for people to ask for help and land somewhere are just growing. So looking for those online supports, parent groups, whatever it is, that's the time. Hand your kid their tablet and say, with the parameters, you have 30 minutes, because, that's the currency that they operate in. Here's your whatever, video games, whatever, for 30 minutes, because I need to just step away. And it's okay. And then finding, and hopefully, and even as this Can Do kind of goes through this stuff, to help folks identify resources and places that they can talk to people, just as a support standpoint. It doesn't have to be anything formal, therapy or anything, but we all need that. So.
Great.
Excellent.
That's very much.
Well, thanks, Roz. I appreciate this. This has been it's been a learning, and it continues to be a learning experience. And we're never done. And hopefully, we make some progress, and we can kind of, come out of this better than we started. So that's the best